Let's start by deleting our default cube and add a new cylinder mesh, but we're gonna use only maybe six sides, and select the cylinder, and we're gonna go to edit mode by pressing tab. Use the face select and then select the top face and scale it down by pressing S, and we're gonna drag it upward using move tool, and maybe we can scale it up a little bit. Maybe a little bit down, something like this. And we're gonna add another, we can use a cone in here. Cone maybe. We don't need too much sides on it. We can use 20. Grab and then press C, G and C, and scale it down on the C axis by pressing S and then C. And grab C, and we're gonna move it slightly downward so it touch our cylinder. Scale it up a little bit, and we're gonna select our cylinder and then go to edit mode once again. Using the face select the bottom, and then Shift D to duplicate the faces, and C to move it down on C axis. We're gonna right click with the face selected. We're gonna right click and then separate by selection. We're gonna go to object mode by pressing tab, and then we're gonna select this separated object. Let's go to right click and then set origin to geometry, and then we can scale it up maybe around, maybe something like this, and then we're gonna move it upward and place it below our cylinder, and then we're gonna add another plane in here, scale it up. This will be our overall scene, and we're gonna place it down maybe in here. We might need to adjust this later, but for now we're gonna make a blockout mesh, very basic layout for our scene. Duplicate this once again, duplicate, and then by pressing Shift D and then press C, select the top, the cockpit object, and then select, then press tab, go to edit mode, and then by using face, we're gonna select our faces and then extrude C and then C once again, so it extrude on C axis. Now that we have this new object, as you can see, we're gonna go to, still in edit mode, we're gonna select the top face, and then we're gonna delete this face. Okay, and then we're gonna use a loop cut. We're gonna cut it maybe into 5, or maybe let's say 4, maybe on each side. We're gonna loop cut it with 4 cuts. This one, okay. We're gonna use a wire, oh, one more. We're gonna use, still using the loop cut, we're gonna loop cut it horizontally, and we're gonna go to object mode by pressing tab. We're gonna go to modifier and then select the wireframe. Yeah, something like this. We're gonna adjust the thickness and then check the boundary, and we're gonna scale it down a little bit, something like this. And then for the bottom part, this one, we're also gonna duplicate this once again by pressing C and then press C to move it downward. And then we're gonna go to edit mode and we're gonna use the face select. Press A to select all the faces, but we only have one, so we can just left click this one and then extrude C and then C once again, so we can extrude it on C axis. Maybe something like this. And we're gonna delete this, both of this up and down face. The top and bottom faces, we're gonna select both of them by left click the bottom face and then shift and left click the top face, right click delete faces. And we're gonna go to loop cut tool. We're gonna loop cut this maybe into number of cuts, only 2 for all sides. 2 and then 2. Oops, sorry. 2, 2, and we're gonna select all of them by pressing A, select all faces, and then go to F3 and then type poke. We're gonna select this poke faces. As you can see, we have our diagonal cut on each of our faces, and we're gonna use the same method. We're gonna use the same modifier, which is wireframe modifier, and we're gonna set it into a bigger number, the thickness, and then the boundary. Don't forget to check the boundary in here, and we're gonna move it a little bit upward, grab and then C, G and then C, and we're gonna place it somewhere around here. Go to edit mode and then we're gonna loop select the top edges by pressing Alt and then select one of the edges on the top edges, something like this. As we can see, with by press and hold Alt and then left click, we are doing a loop selection of the top edges. Let's turn the proportional editing, and we're gonna use a smooth. Press S and then scale it down a little bit, something like this. And don't forget to turn off the proportional editing and get out of edit mode by pressing tab. And there, we're almost done with our windmill. We're gonna add a detail later on, but for now, let's make the blade for our windmill. We're gonna use a, maybe we can use the plane. Then we're gonna go to C, viewport, move it a little bit here, go to edit mode, and then we're gonna use the, either we're gonna use this edge select, then we're gonna move it slightly or something like this, and then we can select this edge, extrude on x-axis by pressing E and then X, left click, drag it a little bit backward, and then left click, and then scale it down a little bit. We're gonna extrude once again on x-axis, something like this. Now we're gonna select the face mode, press A, and then we're gonna extrude it on C-axis by pressing E and then C and C once again. Maybe it's gonna be too long. Go to edit mode once again and select the face select this one, and we're gonna drag a little bit on x-axis, maybe somewhere around here, something like this maybe. We're gonna scale it down a little bit. Now that we have our blade, we're gonna add one more plane object, and then on C viewport, move this towards our blade, and then go to edit mode, select the edge select. I'm gonna select this plane, this edge, and then move it towards here. We're gonna scale it down a little bit, somewhere around here, and this one in here, and we're gonna use the vertex select, move it down a little bit here, and this also here, and we're gonna use a loop cut horizontally by 2 or maybe 3. Yeah, 3 is good enough. Then we're gonna look at vertically, and then set this maybe to 10. So it's kind of shaped like a rectangle, a square in here. It doesn't have to be a perfect square, but similar shape. And then we're gonna get out of edit mode by pressing tab and add modifier, another wireframe. Turn on, check the boundary, and we're gonna set the value into a bigger, and we're gonna place this. Press G and then C, place it below our blade. And we have our windmill blade. Select both of them by pressing this and then hold shift, left click the other object. We're gonna duplicate it by pressing shift D. Place it anywhere you want. Rotate on C axis by pressing R and then C. And we're gonna rotate it 90 degrees. Set 90. And we're gonna grab it in here, somewhere around here, and we're gonna select all of our blade by holding shift and then select these two, hold shift and then left click these two objects. We're gonna duplicate it once again by pressing shift D and then rotate on C axis by pressing R and then C, and set the rotation into 180, and then G to grab to move it the objects and place it in here. And we're gonna select all of the blades by holding shift and then left click. We're gonna rotate it on x-axis by 90 degrees, And we're gonna go to y-axis, y viewport, and we're gonna place this somewhere around here. As you can see, we have a very large plate in here. Let's move it forward a little bit so it doesn't touch the roof or our windmill. And we're gonna scale it down like this. Let's see if we rotate it on the y-axis. Did it touch our railing? Yes, it is. So we're gonna adjust this. Maybe we can scale. Wait. Maybe we can scale it up a little bit. And we can scale this fence object. Press S and then Shift C. So we can scale it only on X and Y axis. Scale it down maybe a little bit. And press and move it downward. It still touch our fences. Maybe we can move our blade a little bit upward in here. So when we animate this later on, it doesn't touch our fence object. Let's scale it up a little bit and then rotate. Why did it touch our fence? Just maybe we can scale it down a little bit more and then press grab and then C a little bit upward, and there you have it. Yep. Okay, for now that we have our basic model of our windmill, let's add details to our windmill, starting by adding a plane object. On object mode, add mesh and then plane. Then we're gonna rotate it on y-axis, R, Y, and then 90. So it rotates on y-axis with 90 degrees. And we're gonna move it towards forward. And we're gonna go to X viewport, go to edit mode, and select the vertices. We're gonna scale it down to create our wood panel. And we're gonna resize it a little bit so it fits the width of our wood panel or of our windmill. And we're gonna go to object mode, right click, and then set origin to geometry. We're gonna duplicate this by pressing Shift D, and then we're gonna press Z to move it upward. Leave a little bit of spaces in between the panels. It doesn't have to be too big. And we're gonna go to edit mode once again by pressing tab. Still on the vertices mode. We're gonna select this side and scale it down a little bit. Go to object mode by pressing Shift D. Right click, set origin to geometry, and Shift D, and then press Y to move it on Y axis, something like this. And we're going to duplicate this and fill up our windmill. Duplicate, select all of them, and then before we duplicate them, maybe we can move them into a new collection. Move to collection, right click, and then move to collection, new collection. Let's call it a wood panels. Okay, and then now we can duplicate it until it goes upward, something like this. And we're gonna fill with this one, like this. And now we're gonna select all of them by pressing the right click on the collection, the new collection which you've created. Right click and then select all objects. Go to edit mode by pressing tab, and we're gonna adjust them. Adjust each of the wood panel so it fits our windmill side shape. To make it easier, maybe we can select this one and press H to hide this object, so it's easier for us to adjust the shape of the panel. Select all of them, select object, and go to edit mode. And we're gonna manually start shaping each of the wood panel. Something like this. It requires a patience to do this kind of method. Or maybe we can do this, select all of this, and then maybe we can just rotate it on x-axis like this one. Oh, I see. It's kind of bit slanted in here. Maybe a little bit slanted is okay. And we're gonna place it in this side like this. And we're gonna do the same in here. Uh, this side is not aligned. We can make them align by scaling on the same side. So in this case, we're gonna scale it on y-axis with 0 value, and as you can see, it will be flattened on y-axis. It will flatten all the vertices on y-axis, and then we can rotate it on x-axis and move it here a little bit. Rotate once again. I think we can use this method. Now we have the wood panel for this one side, and we're gonna select one of them. We're gonna add a solidify modifier, set the thickness maybe into 3, maybe 0.03. Okay, and then we're gonna select all of them, select object, and while pressing shift, select this object with the modifier until it turned light orange. It means that this one is an active object. If we hold shift and then left click, we can see that the last one we selected will become the active object. With this one is active, we're gonna press Ctrl L and we're gonna copy modifiers. Now all of the selected objects will have the same modifier as the active object, in this case solidify modifier. Okay, and now we're gonna move it. We're gonna go to XY viewport. We're gonna move it towards our windmill, and we're gonna rotate it on y-axis and position them so it's aligned with our windmill. Somewhere here we have our wood panel for our windmill on one side, only on one side. And we're gonna select all of them, select objects, and we're gonna shift D to duplicate them, and then press Shift C so it only moves on X and Y axis without the C. So it only moves left or right without moving up and down. And we're gonna place it towards this side. To make it easier, we're gonna go to C, viewport, and then rotate it so it fit with our this side of our windmill. Somewhere like something like this. We can maybe hide this one, hide this object also by pressing H. And we're gonna select all of them. We're gonna duplicate them once again, Shift D, and we're gonna rotate on C axis by pressing R and then C, and we're gonna place it in this side. Shift D once again, and then rotate it on C axis to fill this side. Rotate C. And there you have it. Now we have our windmill object filled with wood panels. To unhide the objects, we can press Alt H, and there you go. We're gonna do the same for this floor, but before that we're gonna hide this wood panel. Select objects, right click, and then select objects. We're gonna hide by pressing H. We're gonna hide this one also, H, and then this one, H. Let's hide this one also, so we can clearly see the floor parts of our windmill. And we're gonna make a wood panel by using the same method. We're gonna use plane, and we're gonna move it maybe somewhere in here. Go to edit mode by selecting the vertices mode. We're gonna scale it down, maybe this big, and we're gonna scale it down a little bit more, maybe something like this. Set origin to geometry by right clicking on object mode, right click, and then set origin to geometry, and we're gonna duplicate on x-axis, leave a little bit of space in between, and duplicate once again so it fills. And let's select all of them, scale it up on x-axis, and so it fills the width of our floor. Duplicate them once again by pressing still on Z-axis. We're going to duplicate one of them, press Shift D, and then place it in here in the middle of these two. Shift D and then X to move it on X-axis. Shift D, X, and we're going to go to edit mode and resize it. Okay, go to object mode, and we're going to resize Shift D once again and place it in for this side. Select all of them by holding Shift and then left click. We're gonna move them into a new collection. We're gonna call it a floor. floor panels, and we're gonna duplicate them the same method as our windmill panel. Shift D and then move it on y-axis. Shift D, Y, and we're gonna also duplicate this to row. Shift D once again, and then y-axis. Shift D, Y, and we have our wood panel for the floor. I'm going to duplicate this and fill this gap. And since this is outside of our floor, we can just delete them. And we're gonna, as usual, I'm gonna manually adjust, align these vertices in the same shape as our floor. The same for the right side. Okay, now that we have our floor shapes, we can then use we're gonna select all of them, the floor panels from our collection. We're gonna select objects, and then we're gonna move it downward so it touch the hexagonal shape somewhere around here, and just click any one of the shift, hold shift, and then click any of the wood panels, and then this will make one active object from our selection. And we're gonna add modifier. We're gonna use the same solidify, and we're gonna go add, let's go minus value, minus 2, so it extruded upward. And then with this one as active object, we're gonna control L and then copy modifiers, and we have solidify modifier to all of our floor wood panel. Alt H to unhide all of them. And for this one, maybe we can let's use a new tool. We're gonna go to edit mode. We're gonna use hold the knife tool and then select bisect. I'm not sure if I pronounce it correctly, bisect. Okay, and then we can use any of this. We can use face or vertices selected, and we're gonna select all of them by pressing A, and we're gonna cut them horizontally. The bisect tool cut through will cut through our object, so it's not only cut on the front but also on the back. Compared to the knife tool is doing the same. Okay, let's try knife tool, and then press A to select all of them and enter. Once you make this select cut and then press enter, as you can see, the knife tool only cut the faces visible in the viewport. So since I using the Y viewport, it only cut only half of them. Let's press Ctrl C to cancel our command. So we're gonna use the bisect once again. For the second line, we want this only a little bit space in between. We're gonna delete these faces later on. And once again, we're gonna cut, sorry, press A, and then cut in here, A, and then cut in here, oops, A, oops, sorry, A, and then cut in here, once again, A, and then cut in here, oops, sorry, A, cut in here. It doesn't have to be a perfect alignment, we just want to give a little bit of spaces. Okay, now that we have our cone cut, maybe we can duplicate this by pressing Shift D and then just left click, so it placed on the same as the original one. And then we're gonna scale it down a little bit, just one of them. Feel free to just one of them, and then we're gonna scale it down a little bit. Okay, so it's inside the other one, and we're gonna select the outer cone and then go to edit mode. We're gonna select these cut faces by holding Alt and then left click, and we're gonna add another loop selection by holding Shift this time, holding Shift and then Alt and then left click, Shift Alt click once again in here, and we're gonna delete faces. Now we have the inner one and the outer one. So for the outer cone, we're gonna add solidify modifier, and we're gonna give it a thickness. We're gonna go to plus value plus 0.004, and there you have it. We have our basic model for our windmill. Oh, one thing that I forgot, we need to add some cylinder in here for our windmill. Let's go add mesh and then cylinder. We don't need a lot of sides for it. You can just set it into 20 and rotate it on x-axis 90 degrees. We're gonna go to Y viewport and scale it down, so it, and then place it somewhere around here in the middle of the fan. Place it forward, and we're gonna go to edit mode by pressing tab, select the face mode, the back faces, and then we're gonna scale it down something like this, and then just press I to inset. We're gonna make it something like this, extrude by pressing E and then I once again. This time we're gonna go a little bit smaller and then extrude once again, so it connect to our windmill. We're gonna add variation in here. We can also inset by pressing I somewhere around here, and then extrude, this time backward. I once again, a little bit smaller, and we're gonna extrude this time upward. Or maybe we can inset once again and then extrude, inset, extrude, backward, inset, extrude out. Okay, something like this. Okay, it is just for variation. Now we have completed our windmill model. Now we're gonna make our cloud objects by using meta ball. Choose the ball one and move it into a new collection. Right click and then move to collection. New collection clouds. You're gonna G to move it and then press Shift C so we can move it only on X and Y axis. We can just duplicate a couple of times by pressing Shift D and then scale it up or down as you like to make the cloud shape. We can also scale it up or down as you like. We'll add one more in here. Maybe scale it down in here. Okay, I think we got our first cloud in here. And now that we have our cloud model, select all of the clouds and then duplicate to make another variation. Let's just to make a different shape, just a little bit of changes in here and there. Okay, let's move it down, scale it down. Just a random, just adding some random shapes and random positioning. And now that we have our two clouds model, let's select the object and then right click, convert to mesh. Since we make from metaballs, these two will be joined objects. We can separate them by going to edit mode and then press L on one of the cloud, L, and then you can right click, separate by selection. Go to object mode by pressing tab, and now we have two different cloud objects. And we can set the origin for both of them. Origin to geometry by right clicking, set origin, and then origin to geometry. So they have their own origin. Now we're gonna make we can move it behind our window. Oh, before let's set up our scene first, our camera, by pressing 0. Press 0 to go to our camera view, and then on this menu, okay, in here, this little arrow in here, you can go to view, and then we can adjust it. Oh, wait a second. Before we go to this one, let's go to the render setting first. The scene, the output, I'd like to have a square, so I will set it into 1080 pixels. And then once we have set up the resolution in here, in the output properties, back to the view, this view tab, I'm gonna check the camera to view, and we can adjust our scene, our camera, and set our view for the camera. I think this one is good enough. Let's put it right in the middle of our scene. And don't forget to turn off the camera view. We're gonna spread our clouds by duplicating and place it around our windmill object. We can randomize the rotation any way you like, as long as it, and we can also scale it up or down, and we can, let's duplicate this and then rotate it on Z-axis and place it behind our scene. Scale it down on Z-axis, maybe, and we're gonna put a lot of clouds below our windmill. Maybe we can delete this object. Maybe we can hide it for now. Let's press H to hide our plane, and then duplicate here, and then rotate it on Z-axis or maybe on X-axis, something like this maybe. And we're gonna maybe scale it this one down, scale to make it longer, something like this. Okay, something like this, maybe a little bit down in here so we can see this part of our windmill. Maybe place it in here. Duplicate once again and scale it up or down. Okay, maybe something like this is good enough. And we're gonna unhidden our plane object by pressing Alt H, and we're gonna select the plane and then move it slightly bottom, slightly down, and then we're gonna rotate it on Z-axis by 45 degrees, something like this. And then we're gonna go to edit mode and select the edge in here. We're gonna select the edge behind our windmill. Okay, and then press 0 to go to our camera viewport, and we're gonna extrude it on Z-axis. Extrude and then Z until it goes above our camera view, and then we're gonna go press G to move it, G, and then press Y, and then once again Y. So press Y twice after G, G, Y, Y, and then we're gonna move it slightly backward so our plane will be slanted like this one. Okay, and then we're gonna go back to our camera view, and then we're gonna scale it on X and then X once again, so it row, and scale it on X-axis, and now we have our plane covering the background of our camera view. And after that, we're gonna select, with the plane selected, we're gonna go to edit mode using the edge select this edge, and then we're gonna bevel it by pressing Ctrl B, and we're gonna add some faces so it the corner goes smooth with the bevel. Back to the view, camera view, and we're gonna right clicking, okay, back into the object mode by pressing tab, and then we're gonna right click and then shade smooth. There, now we have our basic scene, and feel free to add any additional clouds if you feel it's good for the scene, and you can adjust any shape as you like, rotate it or scale it up or down as you like. Okay, we're gonna move. Okay, let's see. Select object. Okay, the cloud is already there, and we're gonna move this. Oh, this one is already on selection. Okay, I think the scene is kind of bit bland with only one object on it. Let's add maybe some trees for our scene. Let's add a new object. We're gonna use plane, and we're gonna move it, grab and then shift Z and move it at other place so we can see it clearly. And we're gonna go to edit mode by pressing tab and then select one vertex from the plane, and then press Ctrl I to select the other vertices, and then we're gonna delete vertices so we only have one left. And we're gonna go to, maybe we go to X viewport, and we're gonna still in edit mode and vertex select. We're gonna hold Control and then right click to add another vertices on our mouse cursor. So we're gonna make our trees this way. We can add some branches in here. Remember to hold the Control to add more vertices. Hold Control and then right click, and it will add more vertices to the place of your cursor. Okay, we're gonna add the branches here, maybe in here. We can also add in here. And once we have done with the branches, we can go to 3D viewport and maybe move this left and right, or maybe rotate it a little bit so it's not just a line in y-axis. Let's randomize the placement of our vertices. We can also maybe turn the proportional editing, and we're gonna press G, adjust the radius, and then we can drag left or right, G, and then play with the radius, maybe something like this, or maybe we can place this in here, rotate it a little bit so it's not flat, so our tree is not looking flat. Okay, maybe something like this, or maybe we can go to y-axis and we can add another branches on the viewport. Okay, maybe something like this. I think it's pretty good. Maybe we can add another here. Okay, and we're gonna go to, we're gonna exit the edit mode and go to object mode by pressing tab, and we're gonna go to modifier, apply the skin modifier. As you can see, we have our tree. We have the skin modifier covering our tree, and we can play around with the size of our branches by go to edit mode and then select one of the vertices, and then we can press Ctrl A to play with the size of the skin modifier. We can also turn this on, the proportional editing, and we can press Ctrl A, and we can adjust the radius so it affects more vertices around it. Ctrl A, Ctrl A, maybe we can adjust it a little bit. Ctrl A in here, Ctrl A, Ctrl A, and also in here, Ctrl A, maybe we can adjust the radius. Ctrl A, adjust the radius. Okay, and we can make this also bigger for the trunk, something like this. Control A in here. Okay, and in here, maybe we can move it a little bit. Control A, Control A. If you want to add more branches, you can also go to edit mode, and then using the same method, select one of the vertices and then hold Control and then right click, and it will automatically apply the skin modifier to the newly created vertices. Okay, so maybe we can, and then we can adjust the size of it by pressing Control A. Something like this. Now we have our tree trunk. Now we will add the leaves for our tree. Before that, let's move this into a collection, new collection, tree, and we're gonna move it slightly here. For the leaves, we're gonna use another new object. Let's add another plane. Move it to up, move this side to this side so it's easier to work on it. We go to edit mode by pressing tab, and then we're gonna use the loop cut. We're gonna loop cut this one cuts, and then we're gonna loop cut this maybe into three cuts. 3 cuts is okay. And we're gonna use this vertex mode, vertex select. We're gonna select this one, select these vertices, this side vertices, and lastly select the middle one. So from the side, and then the last one should be the middle, and we're gonna right click, we're gonna merge vertices, add last. It means that it will merge on the last selected vertices. We're gonna do the same for this one. Select the side first by holding shift and then left click, and lastly still holding shift, press these vertices, and then right click, merge vertices, add last. Now we're gonna go to C viewport and adjust the shape of our leaves. We can turn the proportional editing, and then we can move this so it's shaped like a leaf, something like this. And we can move these vertices, so we will move it a little bit backward. And now we're gonna select these vertices and then press V to cut to separate this one vertices into two, so we can shape our leaves like this. V and then V and V. Yes. Then we're gonna move it a little bit there. Okay. And maybe we can add a little bit of cut in here. Here, here, here. Okay, that's enough. And then press Ctrl in here. And then hold Ctrl and then select this one to pick the shortest path. And we're gonna turn on the proportional editing and we're gonna move it slightly upward, so it's shaped like a leaf. Maybe we can move this slightly upward. So now we have our leaf model. We're gonna add subdivision modifier to shape more like a leaves. Now that we have our single leaf, we can duplicate into maybe a couple more and Shift D in here, rotate it a little bit on Z axis. Maybe let's add another in here, rotate it on Z axis and scale it down a little bit. Shift D, rotate on Z axis and something like this. We can also rotate it a little bit on Y axis, press R and then Y and then Y, so it rotate on original axis, and then move it here slightly, move it upward by grab C. Let's do the same also, R, Y and then Y once again. Let's put it slightly down and move it slightly backward in here. This one we can move it in here. Now maybe we can some more like this. Now we have our leaves model. We're gonna go to select all of them, Control T to join them together, and we're gonna duplicate this once. Shift D, and then we're gonna place it somewhere else. We will give them a different color later. That's why I make these two objects, two of the same objects. So, and then we're gonna move them into a new collection. Move to collection, new collection, leaves. Okay, let's leave this for now. And we're gonna make a particle system for our three leaves. We're gonna add metaball and we're gonna move it slightly here by grab and then Shift C. We're gonna place it randomly placed so it covers most of our branches. Shift D and then place it here. Shift D, Shift C, place it here. Shift D and then maybe a little bit upward like this, and then Shift D, duplicate, just randomized it so it covers most of our three branches. Okay, and make sure it's slightly connected. Okay, in here, maybe in here, maybe in here. Can move this a little bit. Maybe we can add more in the middle of our tree, like this. Something okay. We can see that it covers most of our tree branches. Maybe we can add here more. Okay, some here. And now that we finished with the metaphor, we're gonna select them, select all of them. We can click the object, and then we're gonna right click and then convert to mesh. We're gonna move to collection. We're gonna place it in the tree collection, not leaves, but the tree collection. And we're gonna go to particles, properties, plus to add a new particle system. Okay, now in the particle tab, we're gonna select the hair. For the source, we're gonna use the volume, and the render, we're gonna choose as collection, and we're gonna choose the collection instance leaves. As you can see, it will start popping our leaves randomly, but we can still see the metaball, so we need to uncheck the show emitter on render and on the viewport display. Make sure both of them are unchecked. Show emitter unchecked and show emitter is unchecked. Okay, and then now we have our tree with leaves, but as you can see, the leaves is way too big for our tree. So we're gonna go to render tab in the particle system, and we're gonna play around with the scale. Set it so it size is more makes sense for the tree. And we can also add the number of our leaves by adjust this value, maybe 2000. And we're gonna and then we can also, in the render scale randomness, we can maximize this so our leaf size is not all the same. I think we're pretty much done with our tree. And also, one thing that I need to mention, if you're using a kind of bit low spec of laptop or desktop, it might be burdening if you use a lot of number value for particle system. To avoid that, we can go to the viewport display. We can play around with the amount of the particle used in our viewport. This will only affect the viewport value, but in the final render, it will still 100%. So it only affects the viewport. So it doesn't burden your laptop or desktop. Okay. And now that we are done with our tree, we can also apply a modifier for our tree trunk. Select the tree, and then on the modifiers, add subdivision surface. And we can see that our tree is smoother with the subdivision. I think that's it for the tree. Now that we have our tree, let's try to put it on the camera view. Let's go to the C viewport and move it closer to our windmill and scale it down. And we're gonna go to camera view by pressing 0. And we're gonna drag it down so it's inside our camera. And I'm gonna place it somewhere behind the windmill. Maybe somewhere here. And we can also select the tree by holding shift click, shift left click, the trunk and then the leaves. And then we're gonna shift D once again and then shift C to move it maybe here. I don't have any theory about the placement. I'm just using my guts, and maybe we can adjust the tree placement later on after we playing around with the lighting. But for now, I'm gonna just use this, or maybe we can duplicate this and maybe place it around our windmill. I'm not sure how it goes in the final render, but for now we can just randomly place. It's kind of be it's inside our windmill. Maybe we can rotate it a little bit. Okay, and we're gonna later. I think we can play with the amount of the leaves, the number of the leaves, and the scale. If we use a smaller amount, for example, maybe 50 or maybe under 100, let's try 70 and set the viewport display into 100. We can, if we use fewer leaves, maybe we can play around with the scale. So it's, oh, sorry, too big, 0.05. I'm gonna leave it to you guys. Which one do you like? So a bigger leaves with a fewer number, or you like a lot of value, for example 2000 like the original, but with a smaller value, let's say 0.05, 0.09, like this, or maybe like this. I'm not I'm gonna leave it to you guys, but for now maybe I'm gonna stick with a small one, maybe because it's easier to work with. Let's set them into maybe 30 and the scale into 0.07 maybe. Um, why? 45. Okay, viewport display 100. Maybe I'm gonna play with this value for now. Okay, I'm gonna go with the smaller emission number and bigger scale value for this tutorial. And let's try advance. Check the advance, and then we're gonna go to rotation. Let's play around with this normal, orientation normal, and we're gonna randomize the rotation of our leaves. Okay, base, we can play around with this one. Okay, I'm gonna go with this one, just a random value input. Okay, we're gonna go with this one. So the emission number is 45, and then I check the advance and then the rotation check the rotation, the orientation into normal, the face, just playing around with this value, and then full randomize to, and render as collection with a scale of 0.05. And now we have our scene. Oh, one thing that we can adjust is maybe we can place our background way below our objects so we can avoid the shadow from our clouds. So I'm gonna place it maybe a little bit down, and then let's go to the camera view and see how it looks, and scale it up so it covers most the camera seat. Okay, I'm gonna move it, grab, and then XX, move it slightly on the x-axis. Okay, I think we are done with the layout for our scene. Oops, wait, let's see if there is some cloud inside our tree. We can move it backward. Let's go to the z-axis and then place it a little bit backward for our clouds. Let's go to the camera view. Oops, okay, this one. Before we go to the animation, I'm gonna go add just select one of the clouds and then add modifier. We're gonna add a subdivision surface so it smoothen our clouds, and we're gonna select our clouds object. We already create a new collection for our clouds, so we're gonna go to right click and then select objects by holding shift. With holding shift, select the one with the subdivision modifier applied to make it as an active object, and then we're gonna control L and we're gonna copy modifiers, and now we have our clouds, all of our clouds with the subdivision modifier applied. And now we can go to the animation section, animation part. We're gonna go to our collection, add empty. Oh, first add the curve, and we're gonna use circle. Let's move it somewhere outside of our scene, and we're gonna add one more. We're gonna add empty and plane axis, and then let's move it somewhere here, and then we're gonna select both of them. First, left click our plane axis, and then we're gonna holding shift and then left click our circle curve. We're gonna press Control P, and then we're gonna make it a follow path, and you can try to press spacebar to play the animation. As you can see, the plane axis will animate it following our curve, circle curve. And now select one of our cloud, and we're gonna add another modifier. We're gonna use a displace modifier. Displace. Okay, we have a new tab in here, the direction. Oh, displace. We're gonna go there. Select this. We're gonna select this we're gonna select these coordinates and we're gonna go with the object and we're gonna pick our plane axis as the coordinates. Let's press spacebar to stop our animation, and then we're gonna use this eyedropper tool. We're gonna select the object empty, and for now there is nothing happen because we don't have any textures yet. So we're gonna press a new. Okay, as we can see, we already see that this one is highlighted already, and we're gonna go to the texture properties tab, and we're gonna select. When we click this new texture, we can see that we have a new texture called texture. The settings for this texture is in texture properties. Okay, this is the one we use for our displace modifier. And then we're gonna go to type, change the type into clouds, and as if you try to place the animation by pressing spacebar, as you can see, the cloud is starting to animate, but it's kind of a bit too fast at the moment. So we're gonna go with the we're gonna go select our circle curve, and then in the object properties in here, we can see that the path animation is checked. We're gonna drop down it, and then we're gonna set the animation. Let's change into maybe 50,000. Oh, maybe 5,000. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Now we can see that the cloud animation is a lot smoother, but I still think that it's kind of bit too fast. Maybe we can slow it down by adding more value to it. Let's change it to 8,000. I think 8,000 is maybe 10,000. I think this one is good enough. And we can see that the displays, the texture is too rough at the moment. So we're gonna go to the texture modifier, texture properties once again, and we're gonna change our cloud size and change it into maybe 0.75. Okay. Now that we change the size of our clouds, I think this kind of bit 8,000 value is kind of bit too slow now. So we're gonna change back, select our curve once again, and then go to the object properties, and we're gonna say maybe let's go back into 6,000 or maybe 3,000. What do you think? Maybe I think 3,000 is good enough. Okay. And we're gonna select our clouds in the collection. Right click, select objects. The same method as before. We're gonna shift, holding shift, and then left click this animated cloud. With this one as active object, we're gonna control L, and once again copy modifiers. Now we can see all of our clouds starting to animate. Since we have a different shape for our clouds, we can see that this one is kind of bit slow, and then this one is faster. Maybe we can play around with the size of our displays. Maybe 0.3. the same as this one, 0.3. So we can set this one 0.3. For the small crowd, we're gonna use a lower strength so it doesn't animate too fast. Maybe 0.5 for this one, or maybe 0.3 and 0.3. Okay. 0.5 for this one. 0.5. I think that's it for the cloud animation. And we're gonna animate this. Let's go to the windmill object. I forgot to put this into collection. You can go press the dot to make our viewport focus on the object. Pressing dot, numpad, this one, numpad dot, and then we're gonna select all of our plate. I'm not sure what to call it, plate, by holding shift and then left click on all of them. We're gonna move it into a new collection. Let's call it plate. And let's go back to the first frame. We're gonna go animate. Maybe we can join them for now. Let's go press Ctrl J to join them together. Oops. Let's see. Let's go to the plate, select object, all of the object of the plate, and then we're gonna convert them into mesh. Select object and then right click, convert to mesh. This way, all of the modifiers is gonna be applied on each of the objects. So we don't have any more modifiers in here. Before we convert it into mesh, you can see that we have a wireframe in here, wireframe modifier in here. But when we convert it into mesh, it applied all of the modifiers into the object. Okay, so we're gonna select them, all of them once again, and then we're gonna Control J to join them. So we have a single object for our windmill plate, and we're gonna right click and then set the origin to geometry. So they are right in the middle of our plate. And then we're gonna go to the first frame. I jump to the endpoint. We're gonna go right click and then insert keyframe. We're gonna use rotation for this one. And we're gonna go to the graph editor. Okay. And the object transformation, we're gonna use, let's see, rotate Z, rotate Y. Okay, we're gonna use the Y axis rotation, R, Y, as you can see in here, right? So we're gonna select this Y Euler rotation, and we're gonna go to modifiers. We're gonna add a generator. Okay, and let's see, but play our animation by pressing spacebar. We can see that the fan is already animated, but the speed is way too fast. So maybe we can play with this. We can play around with this value. Let's see, 0.1 or maybe 0.05. So it goes a lot slower. We can go to with 0.02, and we have the animation of our windmill. Okay. Okay, and then for the final animation, we're gonna animate our leaves. The way we animate leaves, the three leaves, we're gonna animate from the object instance. So we need to animate these two objects, and the particle system will automatically following the instance animation. We can start the animation by selecting one of the leaves, and then for now we're gonna go to timeline, and we're gonna go to object data properties, and then select one of them. We're gonna go to object data properties, and then we're gonna go to the timeline. We're gonna go to the first timeline, and then we're gonna add the shape keys. We're gonna add twice. One is the basis, and then we're gonna add one more. This one will be our second shape. So we're gonna animate the leaves shape. So the first thing we need to do is we're gonna go to the first frame, and then we're gonna right click and then insert keyframe. Once again, we're gonna go to, since this is a 250, I think I'm gonna divide this by half, so they will be animate twice. 125, and then I'm gonna right click once again. When the value is 0, I'm gonna right click in here and then insert keyframe. Okay, and in the middle of these two keyframe, I'm gonna just place approximately in here. Okay, so in the frame 63, we're gonna change the value into 1, and then I'm gonna right click and then insert keyframe. Okay, with the value 1 at the keyframe 63, we're gonna we're gonna go to edit mode and make a shape adjustment. We're gonna go to we're gonna for this time for this first leaves, I think we're gonna go select the vertex mode. Remember, we are in the edit mode, so I'm gonna go to vertex select and then select one in the middle of our leaf, and then we're gonna turn on the proportional editing. I'm gonna choose the smooth one, and we're gonna grab Z to move our vertices up or down, and then with the proportional editing, I'm gonna scroll up or down to make the radius bigger, and I'm gonna move it maybe slightly down, and then maybe rotate it on Z-axis, something like this. And if you try to go to the object mode by pressing tab, we're gonna see that it's starting to animate. As we can see, the leaf instance is animated. We can also see the tree leaves is also animated. And this is how we do the tree leaves animation. Is that you can make any changes for the shape, but make sure it's on the keyframe 63. Okay, when we insert keyframe, and make sure you make the changes in the edit mode. Okay, so if for example I want to rotate it a little bit, let's say this leaves, we're gonna rotate it in here, it will automatically change the shape of our animation. Okay, if we change, for example, another, let's say maybe like so any shape change we make on the edit mode, it will be automatically animated on the timeline. Okay, and as we can see, when we move past our second keyframe, it will stop animating. Okay, that's because we only have animation of 125 frames. So to make it looping animation, we're gonna go to graph editor and we're gonna press A in the timeline, move your cursor in the timeline, and we're gonna go select all of the keyframe by pressing A, and then we're gonna go to channel extrapolation mode, and then we're gonna make cyclic. And now we're gonna go back to the timeline, and if we try to play the animation will be looping throughout our throughout our timeline. So for example, if you change this into a 500, it will also cycling until it reaches 500 frames. Okay, so we're gonna put it back into 250, and now we're gonna animate using the same method, this second leaf. Let's select the second leaves, and then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna click basis, and then once again in the key one, we're gonna go to the frame one, and then right click, insert keyframe in here. I'm gonna make it a little bit slower animation. So I'm gonna go to the last frame, and then I'm gonna go insert keyframe, and then in the middle of them I'm gonna set another keyframe but with one value, insert keyframe, and then we're gonna go to edit mode, and we're gonna make a shape change, maybe just a simple one, maybe rotate it this, maybe just move it up and down for this one, maybe something like this. And we can check the animation by going to the object mode, and then we try to play the animation, and this will look like, the animation will look like this one. And we don't have to make it cyclic since it's already a full time frame for this animation. And now I think we are, let's compare, before we go to the coloring, let's compare this tree. I'm still not sure about this tree, but let's try, let's take this into a 2000 again, and then we're gonna set the scale into a smaller one, like I usually do. Maybe something like this is better. Let's try 1500. Let's just delete. Let's just delete this too. Maybe I rotate this a little bit. Let's scale it a little bit down by pressing S and then Shift C. What if we add another tree here? Maybe right behind our windmill. We are basically doing a trial error, and feel free to experiment with the overall layout, but I'm still looking for the best, for a better composition of the scene. Maybe let's make this one a little bit higher. Grab C. Maybe 0.02. Too big. Let's go with 0.12. Oops. Hey, sorry. 1.5. The scale. Let's place a rather random branch trunk or trunk in here. Maybe slightly here. Rotate it a little bit so it doesn't look the same. Okay, let's go to the camera view by pressing 0, numpad 0. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with this layout. And now we're gonna go to the coloring. Let's go with the wood panel first. So we're gonna, since we already have all of the objects in our collection, we're gonna go to select our wood panel. We're gonna select object, and let's go to the shading. The panels all selected. We're gonna go select objects. We're gonna go press Shift H to hide other objects beside the wood panels. Okay, so we're gonna press A once again, and we're gonna go to the material. We're gonna add a new material for this. Let's call it a wood light, and then we're gonna set the color into a brown color, maybe something like this one. So the hex is 7B 5D. It doesn't have to be the exact color, but you will need to experiment with the color, as I usually spend some hours, and I will provide the hex color I use later on. But for now, let's just use this value, and then we're gonna select all objects, and then holding shift and then left click the wood panel with the material applied, and then we're gonna press Ctrl L, link materials. Now we have all of our wood panel with the same material as this one, wood light. Okay, but we will add a color variation to these panels. So we're gonna, instead of selecting randomly, we can go to automatically select random by go to the select object, and then we're gonna select random, and we're gonna create a material based on what we already have in here. So we have this one, a wood light, and we're gonna click this to make a new material, but still using the same settings. So we're gonna click this one. As you can see, we have a new material, but we still use the old color. So from this newly created material, we're gonna click this color, and then we're gonna make it slightly darker. Okay, and since we already have a random selected wood panels, we're gonna press Ctrl L once again, and then we're gonna link materials, and we have our multiple color panels. If you want to add one more darker color, it will use the same method. So I'm going to select random once again, and then we're going to click create a new material based on the material we already have. And I'm going to, let's say, wood darker, and we're going to make it slightly darker, and we're going to press Ctrl L once again and link materials. So we have three materials on the wood panels: the wood light, the slightly darker, and then the darkest one. Or maybe we can change this material into a new name. Wood, let's say this into wood darkest. Okay, and then we're gonna change this copied material into wood dark. Okay, so we have wood light, wood dark, and the darkest. And now that we finished with the wood panel coloring, we can press Alt H to unhide all of the objects. And now we're gonna color using the same method to the floor panels. So we're gonna right click in here and select objects, Shift H to hide all of the objects, and we're gonna select A, we're gonna press A to select all of the objects. Okay, select all the objects, and then let's select one of them, and then A. So we have one single object in here, one active object in here, and we're gonna apply the wood light. We're gonna use the same material we already have, wood light. Control L, link material, and then we're gonna click somewhere around here so it unselect all of the floor panels, and we're gonna go to select random, select another wood dark, another material. We're gonna Control L and then link material, and once again we're gonna select random, we're gonna choose the darkest, wood darkest, and then we're gonna Control L and then link material. There you have it. And then we're gonna press Alt H, and we have the floor panel color. And for this one, I'm gonna go use the darkest one. Or maybe if you want to create a new material, feel free to create a new material. Let's call it a roof. And then we're gonna, maybe we can use the dark red or dark blue. We will need to experiment with the overall color. But for now, let's go choose maybe dark blue for now. As I mentioned earlier, I will provide the hex color, or I will provide the project file later on, so you can check the final color I used for the scene. But for this tutorial, you can still learn one or two tips on how I coloring all of my scenes. And then we're gonna make this. This is the inner part of our windmill. Maybe we can create wind and just place a very dark brown so it doesn't too close with our wood panel. Maybe slightly dark. Okay, like this one. And then we're gonna add this one. Let's create a new material, a steel material, a new. So click this fence, and then we're gonna create a new material. Let's call it a steel. The base color, I'm gonna just use slightly gray, and I'm gonna turn on the metallic value a little bit high and specular a little bit down, and we're gonna copy it. We're gonna copy, or maybe we can just use, oh, we can copy this or apply this steel material to the bottom of our windmill also, steel. Okay, and then we're gonna apply the same material into our windmill. We're gonna select our windmill, and then we're gonna go to the edit mode. Since this is our windmill blade is a joint objects, so I'm gonna use a wood color for this squarish blade, and then the steel material for the fan. And how we do it, we're gonna apply a new material to that object, plus, and then we're gonna choose our steel with the material. Is since we already select one material, it will apply to all of joined objects in here. So we can see we have this squarish object is also applied a steel material. We're going to change it by going to the edit mode, and then we're going to select this, move our cursor to this squarish objects, and then we're going to press L. The same as here, we're going to press L in here, the same one as here, and then this one. Okay, as you can see, we only select these objects, these separate objects, and then we're going to go to the plus. We're going to assign new material to this blank. Let's use wood light, maybe wood light, and then with this selected, we're going to go to assign material, and now we have a different material on our joint objects. Okay, we also have the inner cone here. I'm gonna use the roof material, but I'm gonna make it darker by creating a new material in here, and then roof, change the name to roof darker. I'm gonna change a little bit dark so it doesn't, so we can see a difference. And we can also use the wood material for our trunk. We can use this. Let's select all of our trunks by holding shift, and then select all of our trunk objects, and then with one of them active, we're gonna apply a wood. Maybe you can use a wood dark, and we're gonna press Ctrl L, link material. Okay, we use the same material for our trunk, and if you want to apply different material to them, for example, I can also apply this wood darkest in here, and in here darkest, so we have a color variation for our trunk. And for the next part, let's give color to our leaves. There is no special about this. We can just create a new material and call it leaf 1, and change maybe a little bit of orange, yellow orange. And then for the second one, we're gonna use the leaf 1, and then we're gonna create a new material based on this color. Let's call it leaves too. And then we're gonna give it slightly red orange color. As you can see, when we change the color of the leaf instance in our collection, we can see that the particle systems which use the leaves collection also change color. Okay, so wait a second. Since this is a windmill, maybe I think we can adjust the size so it doesn't too so the tree doesn't too big, since we know a windmill usually are higher and bigger compared to the tree. So maybe we can resize it slightly, resize it down. We can adjust this size later on, but for now, let's maybe smaller is better. Okay, maybe something like this. Maybe we can duplicate this, give another leaves, collect the particle system in here. Okay, and now that we have done with the leaf, the tree and the leaf, now we're gonna go add a material for our cloud. Just select one of them, and then we're gonna go with new material, cloud, and we're gonna go to shading tab in here, and we're gonna delete this principal BSDF. Make sure this one is a cloud material in here, and then we're gonna delete and add search volume, principal volume. We're gonna go to put this socket into a volume, and then we're gonna give emission strength 0.1, and we're gonna go with maybe slightly blue color. Again, I will experiment with the color later on, but for now, let's just use these settings. Just choose any blue color you like. We can go back to the layout and then select our clouds collection, select objects, and while holding shift, left click the cloud with the new cloud material to make it as an active object with a light orange color. And then we're gonna go press Ctrl L and then link material. It will copy all the material used to all of the cloud objects. Okay, and now we're gonna go to with the background. Again, the same method. We're gonna go a new material, and then we're gonna call it the background. And once again, we're gonna go to the shading tab in here. As you can see, this is a background material. Before we go, there is one add-on you need to turn on. It's called Node Wrangler. Okay, so you search in here Node, and then just check this one, Node Wrangler, and then with the add-on check, we can go select this principal BSDF and then press Ctrl T, and it will automatically adding these 3 nodes in here. And we're gonna delete this image texture. We're gonna delete this, and we're gonna replace it with gradient track texture. the vector will go to the vector, and then the color. Oh, one more. Drag these two, just select, box select these two, and then move it slightly right, and then we're gonna add a color ramp. This will be the color of our background, so we're gonna put the color into base color, and then the vector into vector. Okay, now as you can see, with the default setting, we can see that the gradients comes from the left to right, the same as this one. As you can see, we will want to rotate the gradient so it's horizontal. So I'm gonna go with Z. So I'm gonna set this into -90. And then we can control the gradient location by setting this value. This one. Oh, one thing, instead of UV, I'm gonna use the object. Okay. Now we can see, we can go to the camera view, 0, and we can control the color of our background using this node, color ramp node. Let's say we want some blue light, blue sky, and we can also add one more color by pressing plus. We're gonna add slightly lighter blue, maybe something like this. Okay, and I think we are pretty much done with the color. And as I mentioned again, I will maybe I will experiment with the color later on, and I will provide the final color so you can check what color I used in the project file. You can download it for free in the link in the description. Okay, now that we have done with the object materials, we're gonna go back to the layout, and we're gonna go to the viewport shading, and we're gonna change our render engine into cycles, and we're gonna if you have a GPU, you can use this the GPU setting so it's render faster. Okay, and then we're gonna go to the world setting, world properties, and then we're gonna there is a surface tab in here. We're gonna click the color, and then we're gonna use a sky texture. We use Nishita setting, and I like to have this air a little bit low, and then the dust maximum value, and then a little bit of ozone. And I like this a little. Usually I use the 8 maybe settings so it's darker, and the sun rotation I usually use 43. If you add the air with a higher value, it will give a little bit of yellowy color. So maybe this one is pretty good. Maybe slightly low. And we can also change the intensity of our sun. Maybe we can put it lower. And what I wait a second, let's see. Let's click the material, the roof material. I'm gonna go to the material properties. I usually set There is one thing that I forgot to mention. I usually setting all of my materials with a lower specular value, maybe 0.2. This one is also the wood, all of the wood. And we can also, since we make this particle system a smaller size, it's we might need to change the scale settings. So click one of the particle system, any one of them, and then go to the particle properties, and then we're gonna go to the render tab, and we can adjust this maybe 0.05, maybe 0.6. And don't forget that this is only 20%. I used the viewport display quality 100. If so, maybe we can add the number of our emission to, let's try 3000. Okay, 3000 is okay. And maybe we can add a little bit more. We can duplicate this and place it somewhere around our windmill. I'm sorry if we have to go forward and backward, as this is how I did most of my scene usually. I feel like there is something need changes or adjustments, so I just add after. So I just add it along when I work on my scene. Let's see. Okay, so maybe since our cloud is kind of look like kind of bit smooth, maybe we can change the texture. Let's select our cloud, and then let's change the scale size into a smaller, so we can see more shape from our cloud. Maybe let's try 0.4. Oh, one thing that we can also use in the viewport shading, we can control for now. As you can see, we also rendered the scene outside of our camera view. So we can make our laptop or desktop work faster by pressing Ctrl B and then select the area on our camera view. And now the scene outside of our camera is not rendered in a viewport. So we can save a lot of memory, and we can make our working progress faster that way. And I'm gonna duplicate this and then maybe place it somewhere here. Can maybe also can put it in here. Maybe let's just give it some scale up. Duplicate once again. Maybe something like this. Let's see how it goes. We can see the animation of our tree, the leaves, but it's not significant enough. Maybe we can add uh, animation to our particle system also by doing the same method as our leaves. If you remember, we can go select one of our leaves particle system, and then we're gonna go to object data from this, press this shape key twice, and we're gonna go to the first frame. We're gonna right click, make sure this one in the key one highlighted, and then we're gonna insert a keyframe in here, and let's make this into half of our total frame of 250. So I'm gonna go to with 125. We're gonna go insert keyframe in here with the 0 value, and in the middle of it we're gonna set the value to 1 and then insert keyframe in here, and we're gonna go to the edit mode. We're gonna make a shape change in here. I'm gonna turn on the proportional editing, and I'm gonna use this just random select by holding shift, and then maybe we can just move it slightly backward, move by pressing G, and then adjust the proportional editing, and maybe we can rotate instead of grab, rotate R, and then we're gonna rotate it slightly on the y-axis, and then we can also move it slightly backward. So, okay, let's go back to the object mode by pressing tab, and we can see the animation. I think this one is pretty good, and we can also make them cyclic by going to the graph editor, press A with this object selected, with our particle system selected, and then we're gonna go to channel, extrapolation mode, make cyclic. Go back to the timeline, and now we can see that our tree is moving, swaying. So the leaves also moving, and also the tree itself also moving. And now we can select our tree object. Maybe we can just manually select all of the particle system, and then while holding shift, select this one, the one with the animation. Let's select select the one with the animation to make it as an active, and then we're gonna control L, link object data, and we will see that all of our tree will also have the animation. Maybe we can rotate some of them so it doesn't move the same direction. Okay, and we can go back to the viewport shading. I think this wait a second, let's see if we can add some additional items for our, or maybe we can select our camera, okay, and then we can go to the view, and then camera to view. Maybe we can make our object bigger by scrolling up or down, or maybe we can change it into the focal length value. So there is not much background in our scene. Okay, now that we have set the camera to view, we need to turn off, and then we're gonna go uh, add one more items, object, light, and then area. Move it by pressing G, and then move it on the left side of our scene, and then move it slightly upward by pressing G and then C to move it on Z axis, and then we're gonna rotate it into with rotate X, and then we're gonna set the direction into our scene, and maybe rotate it slightly on the Z axis, so it's look like this. Okay, and then we're gonna add the power maybe into 1000, and oh, maybe it's too bright. Let's try 400, and I'm gonna keep it just ambient light. I'm gonna go with blue. Okay, and one more thing, maybe we can change the density. Let's try to play around with the density of our cloud. We're gonna go to select one of our cloud, and then go to the material properties. We're gonna go to the volume tab, and then we're gonna change the emission into 0.2. Let's see how it looks. The density is wrong. Maybe we can put it so it covers the end of our windmill fence. We can change maybe to a slightly darker white, maybe more white, darker. So it's a bit dark. Let's try. Try play around with this light value. Let's try 800. Maybe we can also change this spec here slightly down, and then we can make it a little bit dark again. And this is the process where I usually spend some time playing around with the color and the material value. But basically we are pretty much done with our scene. As you can see, we can also try to animate it in this view for shading, and for the render settings, we're gonna go to the render and set the resolution. Usually I use 1080 pixels, and then the frame rate, I don't make any changes in here. The frame start, okay. And for the output, I usually like to save my format in JPEG or PNG, so the final rendering will be in multiple files of JPEG image. Why I do the JPEG image first instead of directly into a video file? Because when we render into a JPEG, we can pause our rendering progress whenever we want. So let's say, for example, I've done rendering from frame 0 to 80, right? So for the next rendering, I can change this frame into 81. So we can always pause our rendering progress. Compared if you use a FFmpeg directly, if you need to close your laptop or desktop, we will lose all of our rendering because the video file is not yet finished. That's why I usually like my rendering into the JPEG format first. And I will also tell you after this how to combine the JPEG renderings into a single video file. So let's see, I think we forgot to add the material to the base. Let's just use wood ducts, wood main for our floor. Okay, okay. Oh, I just realized that maybe we can add some one more objects. It's for our windmill door in here. We can quickly make it by adding a plane. Add a plane in here, and we're gonna rotate it on y-axis 90 degrees, and then we're gonna grab G and then shift D and move it slightly on the right side of our windmill. Then we're gonna go to edit mode, and we're gonna could use a loop cut in loop cut vertically, and I'm gonna use the number of 11, and then with the vertex selects, we're gonna choose the middle vertex, the top middle, and then we're gonna turn on the proportional editing and use the sphere one. And then we're gonna grab by pressing G and then C, adjust the radius, and then we're gonna make it so making some arc for our door. And then we're gonna scale it down, and we're gonna place it right in the middle of our windmill in here. Okay, maybe we can make it a little bit longer. So we're gonna select all of the bottom vertices, and then we're gonna grab, before we do that, let's turn off the proportional editing, and then we're gonna grab and then press C, G and then C, and we're gonna drag it down here. Oh, still in the edit mode, we're gonna select all of them by pressing A, and then extrude on x-axis by pressing E and then X. And there you have it. We have the door, the base model for our door, and we're gonna use this select face select one of the faces in the front, and then by holding control press the other end of the faces. We're gonna pick the shortest path so it select all of our faces in the front, and then press I to use an inset tool, and then just move it slightly smaller because we don't want the faces to be overlapped. Let's say, for example, if I press in here and then just drag it down, you can see that there is a lot of overlapping faces in there. So instead of dragging with a lot value like this, we're gonna cancel it by press Ctrl C, and then we're gonna press I inset once again and just make it a small scale like that, and then we're gonna press S to scale it down. That way we don't have to deal with the overlapping faces. And we're gonna move it slightly up in here, and then we're gonna go to the vertex select. We're gonna choose the bottom vertices, left click on the left, the most left vertices, and then holding Control and then left click, and we're gonna move it downward by pressing G and then C. Okay, and we're gonna select using the face select. We're gonna select this one, and then while holding Control, select this one, and this time we're gonna use the extrude tool, E, and then press X, and we're gonna have our door. Okay, maybe we can drag it a little bit far in here, like this, and we're gonna delete the faces. So if we move it forward, we're gonna see something like this. Okay, and go back to the edit mode. We're gonna choose the vertex select once again, and press Alt, click in the edge of our front door in here, in the arc, or in here. Okay, so let's say press Alt and then left click to use a loop selection, and then we're gonna press Shift D to duplicate it and move it slightly forward, and then we're gonna right click and separate by selection. And now we have two objects. One is the door, and this one. We're gonna select these lines. Maybe we can press the Shift H to hide all of the object except this line. Shift H, and then we're gonna go to the edit mode and see. Okay, there is a lot of vertices in here because we copied from our previous door. So we're gonna delete all of the middle vertices. So left click this second vertices and then hold Control and choose this vertices. We're gonna delete vertices, and we're gonna select these two by holding Shift and then left click this one and then this one, and then we're gonna press F to fill to connect both of the vertices. Okay, so we only have a lot of vertices here, and the bottom we only have two. And now we can go select all of them by pressing A and then press F. Okay, and now we're gonna select these four vertices, and then we're gonna subdivide this edge, subdivide. Okay, and now we're gonna press select the middle bottom, and then while holding Shift, select the middle of the top one, and then we're gonna press J to join them together. And select this left vertices, and then we're gonna while holding Shift and then left click this other, and then we're gonna join them together by pressing J. Okay, and now we have the four faces in here, and select all of the faces by pressing A, and then we're gonna use the Inset tool by pressing I and just move it slightly down, and this time we're gonna use the individual, so it applied a inset on each faces individually, and we're gonna select each one of them, and let's choose these two faces, and then we're gonna scale it down like this, and we're gonna do the same, scale it down like this. And we're gonna adjust the placement of our vertices by select these two and then move it slightly downward. These two slightly downward. And we can also move this forward and slightly up. Okay, something like this. And we're gonna select all of the new faces. We're gonna drag it so it gives nice variation to our door. Okay, just move it slightly forward or backward. Maybe we can do the backward one. And then we're gonna do the inset once again by pressing I. Just slightly and then scale it down. Okay. And maybe we can move it slightly light. And this one slightly bottom. As we can see, we have an overlapping faces in here. The same as this one. We're gonna face it, move it down and right. This one we're gonna move it slightly right. Okay, like this one. And we're gonna select all of them. We're gonna press extrude. And there you have our store model. So we're gonna press Alt H to unhide all of the objects. And let's put it back on our other door. Since we can see that it's overlapping in here, we can move them both slightly forward like this. And now we have the door object for our windmill. Let's just use the existing material. So I'm gonna use the wood darker in here, wood darkest, and then for this one I'm gonna use the wood light, or maybe we can use the wood main, the darkest wood main, and then I'm gonna use the wood dark in here. Let's see how it looks on the viewport. One more steps that we need to add in the compositing window. We're gonna set a quick notes for this, for the scene rendering, and we're gonna check the use nodes. We can see that there is two nodes in here. We're gonna add a denoise in here. Denoise, place it in between the two nodes, and one more is glare. And we're gonna change into fog glow, and with this size of 6. Also add in this view layer, check the denoising data, and we're gonna place this normal and albedo sockets. Okay, that's it for the compositing. The glare nodes used for the glow effect when we use the Eevee rendering. But since we use a cycles render to give the same effect of the glow in the Eevee, we use the glare nodes. But in the scene, we don't use any lighting, so we can actually just remove this and it won't give a different result of the rendering. Okay, and we can just place it there. I think that's it for the compositing, and now we are ready to go for the rendering process. Okay, so with the settings that I explained before, I like to use my max sample only maybe 128. in the render, and then in the output I would like to use the frame start is 1. For the output I like to use a JPEG and set on any folder you like, but I'm gonna use just a default. And when you're ready with the settings, the rendering settings, I'm gonna go with render animation. Let's see, 1080, okay. Then I'm gonna choose render animation. Okay, I think that is pretty much for the rendering process. I'm gonna explain to combine all of the rendered JPEG image into a single video file in a moment. Okay, now that I have rendered all of my JPEG images, as you can see, we have 250 files in here. Now we're gonna go to Blender and we're gonna go create a new video editing. Okay, and since the rendered image is 1080 resolution, I'm gonna change the resolution into the same value, 1080. Okay, and then we're gonna go add image sequence and choose the folder where your rendered image. Go to the folder where you put the rendered image files, and then we're gonna press A to select all of the files and then add image strip and the files automatically into the timeline. And now when we already add the image strip into the timeline, all we have to do is go to render animation. Okay, since the format is already FFmpeg and then the output is I will leave it into a default value. If you want to change the color, for example, if you want the final video file more contrast, you can change in this color tab. We can change the saturation maybe for the contrast, the color contrast, and the multiply if you want it to be a brighter, like this one. I'm gonna just slightly adjust it because I think it's kind of bit dark, the rendering. Actually, we can change the color before we render the final separate images in here. So we're gonna go to the render properties and we're gonna go to color management. We can change this from exposure and gamma. So if, for example, in the final viewport render, you feel like the image is not contrast enough, we can change the look of it with changing this value. For example, if we can change high contrast or maybe medium high contrast, and then we can just hit render animation. If we change the value in the original file, the original project file, we don't need to change in here anymore. We can leave it to the default value 1 and 1. But since we don't make any changes in this look color management before, we can change it in the video editing. So I'm gonna go with a 1.1 and the multiply I'm gonna change it to 1.2 or maybe 1.2 is okay. Okay, and when we already finished with the settings, the file format is FFmpeg video. Okay, so with the frame start is 1 to 250, and with all the settings correct, we can just go hit render animation. The process will only take few seconds because we already have rendered all of the files. It only takes about 10 seconds maybe for the rendering, and we can check the result in the folder in the output, and we can try to play the animation. And there you have it, the final render files of the animation. Okay, I think that's it for this tutorial. I hope you find this tutorial useful, and please let me know if you have any feedback. Thank you so much.